For years, I've been trying to work out when the 3 pyramids of Giza were really built. These past months, I've built a system of AI agents that reads sources in the language they were written in, checks editions against each other, verifies every word against the old dictionaries, and hunts down papers that were never published or altered or taken down. They came back with 22 pages of 15th century Arabic. What came back with them, I was not expecting. The book is called the Book of Exhortations, and it was written by al-Maqrizi, the most quoted historian of Cairo. Egyptologists use him every time they write about the city. That chapter, almost nobody cites. It opens with a sentence people usually skip. It says, "The people have differed about the time of their building, about the name of the one who built them, and about the reason. And they have said concerning this discordant things, most of which are not true." In other words, he is about to tell you 20 versions, and he warns you that almost all of them are false. This is not a book trying to convince you. It is a man laying out what he found. And his main source is 2 centuries older than he is, a scribe named Ibrahim ibn Wasif Shah. Let's start with the thing I found first, the moving of the megaliths. Impossible with their technology, and at certain weights, impossible even with ours. It says this: "They had sheets, and there was writing upon them. When the stone had been cut and its dressing was complete, they laid those sheets upon it, and they struck it. And with that blow the stone moved away, about 100 arrow shots, roughly 18 kilometers. Then they did it again, until the stone reached the pyramids." Now let's be careful, because this is where everybody slips. The text does not say the stone flies. The verb is yab'udu. It moves away, a verb of distance, not of height. But to move away, a weight like that has to leave the ground. And the cutting has already happened. The stone is cut and dressed first. So this is not about how they worked granite. It is only about how they moved it. And then there is the technical detail nobody uses. The effect is not continuous. It runs out, and it has to be applied again. One blow, one stretch of road, another blow, until it arrives. And where did it come from? The text says it. They had the rocks brought from the region of Aswan. From Aswan to Giza is 679 kilometers in a straight line. At this point you ask, why should I believe a book that talks about stones traveling by themselves? And I'm not asking you to. I'm about to show you something else. That whoever wrote that chapter knew how those pyramids were built. In the text, the 3rd pyramid has no proper name. They call it the colored one. And a few pages later, it explains why. It is the pyramid whose lower part is of stones from Aswan, and whose upper part is limestone. That is Menkaura. And today, if you go, you still see the 16 courses of red Aswan granite at the base, and the rest that was faced in pale limestone. A man of the 15th century, or his 13th century source, calls a pyramid the colored one, because it is two-toned, and it really is. On a detail we can check ourselves, the source gets it right. Now the part that got me out of my chair. In another place in the book, it is written, "The flood came, and it drowned all the land of Egypt, and destroyed its buildings, and the water remained 6 months, and it reached the halves of the 2 great pyramids." And in another chapter again, in the words of al-Biruni, a real scientist of the year 1000. "The traces of the waters and the effects of the waves were plain upon the halves of the 2 pyramids, and had not passed beyond them." 2 different passages, 2 different sources, the same thing. The water rose to the halfway mark, and there it stopped. And if the water left its mark on the pyramids, those pyramids were already standing when it arrived. There is more. In the whole chapter, the pyramids are the only works the text does not declare destroyed by the flood. Everything else is wiped out. Not them. They serve as the measuring stick for the water level. And one thing I'll add myself, because it's on me, everyone who has entered the Great Pyramid in the last 2 centuries has found salt inside. Napoleon's men, Belzoni, and Weiss, even in a chamber walled shut since the day it was built. Analyzed 3 times in 2 centuries, sodium chloride. And the test that would decide where it came from? The bromine to chlorine ratio has never been run in 190 years. In the 1990s, the incrustations were scraped away. But why did they build them? Here the account is precise, and it does not say what you expect. The king has a dream. The earth turns over with its people, and the stars fall and strike one another with terrible sounds. He calls his astronomers and asks, "Look at the sky. Is something coming?" They look, and they say yes. First the water, and after the water, fire. Then the king asks 3 questions, and these are the ones that change everything. He asks, "Will it strike our country?" Yes. He asks, "Will the land become habitable again as before, or will it stay underwater forever?" It will become habitable again. He asks, "And then?" And they list for him everything that will come to the end. Only then does he order them built. And look at what he orders, because this is the part nobody reads. He orders the pyramids. He orders channels so the Nile enters inside to a determined place. He orders them filled with talismans, with treasures, with the bodies of their kings. And he orders everything carved inside. The stars and their causes, geometry, arithmetic, the names of the drugs with what they heal and what they harm. He does not order provisions. He does not order the people brought in. He never once says to go inside. They had just told him the land would become habitable again. The problem he is solving is not surviving. It is not losing what they know. And this is what led me to think of Edgar Cayce's Hall of Records. And in another chapter, the motive is written out in full. They feared the erasure of the sciences, and their perishing along with their people. There is even the method. They knew a calamity was coming, but not which one: fire, water, or sword. So they built in 2 different materials, one for each scenario, and deposited the knowledge in 3 parallel forms: images, statues, and writing. That is not a legend. That is a design specification for an archive meant to survive a catastrophe of unknown type. And there is the line that closes it. It was written, the text says, explained for whoever knows our language and our writing. An archive with a key. Whoever doesn't have it, looks at it, and cannot read it. That leaves the last question. When? And here the text does something curious. The inscription it reports says, "I am the king. I built these pyramids in such and such a time. Such and such." In Arabic, it is qada wa qada, and it is the placeholder you use when you don't have the number. Whoever was copying no longer had the date, but somewhere else, instead of the date, there is a star. It says, "These 2 pyramids were built while al-Nasr al-Waqi was in Cancer." Al-Nasr al-Waqi is the Arabic name of Vega. It is the very word our own name comes from. And this changes everything, because a star can be calculated. Through the precession of the equinoxes, stars move through the signs, 1 degree every 72 years or so. Vega was in Cancer between 14,000 and 11,800 years ago. The text, though, concludes 72,000 years. And here is the good part. It is wrong, and you can see why. It was counting with Ptolemy's precession cycle, 36,000 years, because Ptolemy believed precession was 1 degree per century. The true value is 1 degree every 72 years, and the cycle is 25,700 years. Ptolemy was off by nearly half again. So the arithmetic is wrong, but the star is not. The raw datum is good, it is the mathematics around it that is old. And the 72,000 falls for a second reason too. The pyramids point at today's north, within less than 1/10 of a degree. In my reconstruction, today's north settled after the impact of 12,850 years ago. Before that, the pole was elsewhere, in Hudson Bay. Cross the 2. Vega in Cancer on one side, the alignment to today's north on the other. One window is left, between 12,850 and 11,800 years ago. Edgar Cayce, in 1932, said 12,500 years ago. He knew nothing about Vega, and he could not have run this calculation. And it doesn't end there. Robert Schoch, a geologist at Boston University, dates the rainfall erosion on the walls of the Sphinx enclosure as far back as 10,000 before Christ. Same window. And the salt inside the Great Pyramid, if it comes from the sea, puts a flood in there. Again, that same window. 4 clocks that never talk to each other. A star inside an Arabic text. An alignment to the pole. The erosion of a rock and salt on a wall. And they all land on the same spot. Now I'll tell you what doesn't hold, because if I don't, somebody else will. A star stays in one sign for about 2,100 years. So a star and sign taken at random has roughly a 1 in 8 chance of falling in that window. It is not impossible by chance. And if instead of the sign of Cancer you use the constellation of Cancer, which is a different thing, the window shifts and the 12,500 falls outside it by 500 years. And the chapter contradicts itself 28 times. On the measurements, on the doorways, on who is buried there, and even on how long the work took, which is 6 years in one version, 6 months in another, and 1,000 days in a third. So I am not telling you I have the date of the pyramids. I am telling you something else. That inside a book everybody quotes for Cairo, in a chapter nobody reads, there is an astronomical datum that nobody has ever calculated with the right value for precession. And when you do calculate it, it does not take you to 2,500 before Christ. It takes you back 12,000 years. And now I'll tell you the thing that doesn't add up for me, and that I'm still working on. The account says they built them for the catastrophe that was coming. But from everything I've gathered across 3 books, the pyramids were not built to shelter from the flood. They were built earlier, and for another reason. To use the energy the earth already has. To light up the granite, to make it resonate, to transmit, to power the devices they were putting inside. And look, it is the text itself that proves me right, without meaning to. It orders the Nile brought inside the complex. In a shelter from water, you do not pipe the water in. And it puts 30 storerooms of instruments inside, not provisions. The flood comes afterwards, and when it comes, you use what you have. And what they had were the only buildings in the country the water could not touch. They did not build them for the flood. They sheltered inside them. The rest is in Volume 1. It will happen again.